Our Old Testament lesson this morning is Isaiah 63, 7 through 9. I will tell of the kindnesses of the Lord, the deeds for which he is to be praised, according to all the Lord has done for us. Yes, the many good things he has done for the house of Israel, according to his compassion and many kindnesses. He said, surely they are my people, sons who will not be false to me. And so he became their Savior.
Well, if you stand for the reading of the gospel, I know that kids grow up really fast. It seemed like only 5 days ago Jesus was a baby. Now he's 12. Listen for the word of the Lord. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover, and when Jesus was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. And when they'd finished the days, they returned. And as they returned, the boy lingered in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother did not know it. But supposing Jesus to have been in their company, they went a day's journey, and then sought him among their relatives and acquaintances. But when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. Now so it was, after 3 days, they found Jesus in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and his answers. So when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously. And he said to them, Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business? But they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. And then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them. But his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature, in favor with God and men. And this is the word of the Lord. And you may, sorry. Thank you, Brenda. You've really gotten to know me now. Just jump right in there. You may be seated, except I'm going to do this sermon in 2 parts. First, I'm going to talk to the kids, tell them a story, then I'll reflect on it so all the kids can come forward. Did you all have a nice Christmas? Did you have a nice Christmas? All right. Well, there's a part of the country not very far away. It's called Appalachia, or Appalachia, if you're from Appalachia. And it actually starts in Pennsylvania and goes down into West Virginia and into Tennessee. And it's a very beautiful place. It's not always a very wealthy place, that's for sure. And this is a story called Silver Packages. It's by Cynthia Ryland. And it's a really wonderful story. So I'm going to tell you the story. You ready to listen up for this? You going to behave yourself? I'm sure. Every bit. Okay. Now, a train comes through Appalachia every year at Christmas. And the train doesn't have antlers, nor does it have a man standing there with a long white beard and a sleigh and reindeer, but it may as well be Santa Claus for all the excitement it stirs up. You want to sit here with me too? You want to go back with Dad? He wants to go back with Dad and Grandma. Now, people call it the Christmas train, and it takes the old Clinchfield Railroad that comes down, goes into Kentucky, and actually it goes down from Kentucky into Kingsport, Tennessee on the 23rd of December every year, and it has been doing that since 1943. Can you figure out how many years that is? You think about that and you tell me. Now, each child born in those mountains knows about the Christmas train, and they learn to walk and talk and wait for it because it's everyone's delight. Now, the oldest people who were there, they remembered how it all started. They tell of a rich young man who had been coming through their area. He'd been driving really fast and he wasn't paying attention, and he had a car accident. He just wasn't paying attention. He just sailed that car up over the ridge and over the guardrail, and there he was, slumped into that car, hurting and hurt, scared. And someone came along. They couldn't remember who it was. It could have been old Mr. Cruikshank. It could have been Betty Pritt. They didn't remember who it was, but they took him home There was no hospital. There was no life flight. They just took him home, and they nursed him back to health. And when he finally got to where he could go home, he was so grateful for their care, he wanted to give them money. And they said, no, we don't want any money. This is just what we do here. Neighbors take care of neighbors. So he left the mountains feeling like he owed a great debt. Do you know what I mean when I say a great debt? Like a debt of gratitude, like people have been so kind to you, you want to repay them in some way. And for all the years of his life, he has been repaying the debt from the caboose of the Christmas train. And he brings it into the hills every year in December. Now, do you remember what day I said it was? December 23rd. That's right, it was the 23rd of December. And the train will slowly wind its way up through the mountains and in those little towns. And on the platform of the caboose will stand this man in this rich wool coat, a blue coat. And he has sparkling silver packages, and he waits for the kids to run after the train. And then he'll throw them packages, and they catch it. So this train's awfully important, because for some kids, that may be the only present they're going to get all year. I bet you got plenty of presents, right? And you probably got plenty too. And so did your brother. And so did you, right? And you got a lot of presents, right? Well, for some people, they only get one. So this train's important. So one year, a boy named Frankie, he stands beside the tracks, and he waits for the Christmas train. It is really cold. You know, it snowed the other day. Well, it snows there in the mountains quite a lot. And a lot of snow has come there the night before, but he doesn't have very good shoes. The soles are thin, and his feet hurt. They ache from the cold. They do. Do your feet ever ache from the cold? Okay. And he's just freezing. But he's going to stay there because he wants a particular present. What do you think he wants? Well, he wants a doctor's kit. He wants a doctor's kit more than anything else. So he waits. And finally, you can hear the train. You can hear the noise of the steam engine, this big kind of bass thrumming. And you can see the smoke. And you can hear the whistle. And the train slows down and goes through the station. And just as the caboose passes his nose, Frankie and all the children run after the train. His feet ache with the cold, but he's going to run after that train. And here's this man, this wool coat, blue wool coat, and he throws packages out to kids, and he sees Frankie, and he tosses them a package. And Frankie catches it. And he's so out of breath, he wants to say thank you, but he can't. He just waves. And the train takes off into the trees and the woods and the mountains and the next stop. Well, he takes that package home, and he puts his name on it, and he puts it under the tree. And it's the 23rd of December, so he's got to wait 2 days to open this up. And he knows inside that package is a, do you remember? Think hard. Do you remember? He knows it's a doctor's kit, right? So on Christmas morning, he's there with his mother and his father and his brothers and his sisters, and he takes the silver package and he opens it up, and you know what's inside? Nope, socks and a cowboy holster. He wants a doctor's kit, and he's so disappointed, and he tries not to cry, and his mother says, oh, how nice, and his brothers say, that's great, and well, okay. So all year long, he wears those socks in the winter, he plays with that cowboy set all summer, and then the next year, the Christmas train is coming, and it comes on what day in December? The 23rd of December, and he's there, and you know what? It's cold. But he's got wool socks on, and his feet feel pretty good. But his hands are so cold. And he rubs them together, and he breathes into them. You know how you kind of do that into your hands? And it's so cold. Well, the Christmas train is coming. And people see it. They let up a cheer and a shout. The kids start running after it. And here's the man in the rich wool blue coat coming with packages everywhere, and he sees Frank, and he says, Merry Christmas, and throws this package, and he catches this package and takes it home, and on Christmas morning, he opens it up, and it's hid his gloves, and a little police car with lights that really work, but no doctor's kit. And the next year he's standing there. And the next year he's standing there. And he gets a present every year, but he never gets a doctor's kit. He's gotten trucks and balls and cars and mittens and hats and gloves and socks.
I think if he was smart, he wanted a doctor's kit so much, with all the stuff that he didn't want, couldn't he have just sold that stuff and got out and bought a doctor's kit?
Well, you have to hold on here for the rest of the story, right? So, but I think that's very perceptive. You're going to do really well at English. This is good. But he grows up. And as he grows up, his travels take him away from that mountain town. And he grows up to be a man. He gets some education. He becomes a different person. But his deepest memories about growing up in that mountain town, about all the people who cared for him, about his experiences, about a man who'd come through on a Christmas train and he wanted a doctor's kit, but he got socks and gloves and hats and scarves and that kind of thing. But he remembers the people there, and he feels like he has a great debt too. His brothers and sisters are all there, so he decides he'll move back home. And he does. And you know, it's good. It feels good. He'd almost forgotten about the Christmas train, but he read about it on the 22nd of December, and he decided on the 23rd he was going to go and see the Christmas train. Well, he's standing there now as a grown man. Well, he might be. So he's standing there, and you know, he could hear the sound of that steam engine, and he could hear the bell and the whistle. He saw those kids, and boy, he's transported back. He's a boy again. He's standing there in the cold with his feet frozen, his hands frozen, and he remembers all of those things. And as the train comes by, he sees the caboose, and by golly, it's the same man. He's an old man now in that blue wool coat, and he's throwing silver packages to kids, and he almost wants to run after that train. It's so strong in him. It's like he's a kid all over again. And as he sees the kids running, his eyes see a little girl, and she's running after that train for all she's worth. It's not going very fast, but she's really trying hard. There's so many kids ahead of her. And she catches up, and the man throws her a silver package. And she catches it, but when she does, she trips, and she goes head over heels and skins her knee on the ice and the rocks there by the train. And now Frankie's running after the train, not for silver packages, not for the man in the blue coat, but for the little girl. And he bends down and he scoops her up, and she's crying, and he takes a scarf and he wipes her tears, and he says, "It's okay, it's okay." He picks up the little package and he gives the package to her, and he says, "My name's Frank, and I'm a..." That's right, he's a doctor. It's a really good story, isn't it? It's not a good story? I practiced really hard for this story. May you get socks and underwear next year. So what I'd like to do now is leave you with that story. I did really practice that story. Oh, it's a dumb story. Oh, well. That's how it goes some days. Well, I'd like to talk to you, too, from this text of Jesus growing up and from our own lives. You know, it does seem that Christmas is the emotional center of the year. It's like unlike any other time. You know, it brings up a lot of emotions, a lot of values. Kids get all crazy with excitement. Lovers do, too. I wait for the first week of January, because by that time they've got the hall, they got the ring, they got the date, they have everything but me. You know, they call me. And people become nostalgic for Christmases past, memories of family and home and friends. Sometimes it's really sweet. In my first year of ministry, I was in the town of Bristol, Tennessee, and I was a youth pastor there. And I went to the Christmas party that they had. And most of the people there were quite old. to me. I was 24. Everybody was really old when I was 24. And they told stories. They told stories about being so poor they only got an orange, and their dad would take the flue out of the chimney and have them look up, and when they look up, he'd drop an orange down. That was from Santa Claus. Or the guy who grew up in Hazard County, Kentucky. There really is such a place. He was one of 19 kids, and they didn't have anything. And every year his father would go out and he'd say, "What's that?" And someone would be ringing some jingle bells out there. And he'd run out with a shotgun and fire off a couple shots, and the small kids would think he just shot Santa Claus. He'd come back in and he'd say, "I don't know who that fella in the red suit was, but I fired and he dropped this candy." So he'd bring that in, and that was their Christmas. And I remember one old gal, and she was in her high 80s, and she was a sparky old gal. Her name was Versie McCrary. That's a real Southern name. And she was from Jasper, Alabama, but she talked about being in Big Stone Gap, Virginia during the war. And she was putting her son on the train in 1943 to go off to England and then participate in D-Day. And he was there with his wife, and she said there were people all over that train station, young men and boys in uniform, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, wives and girlfriends, all kinds of people there. And she said it was terrible. There was weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. They were just so upset. And she said there was just such a crush of people, and the train came in and the cars opened up and people were flocking on there, and she's trying to hug her son. She doesn't know if she'll ever see him again, and she did. But he's there with his wife, and by golly, she gets pushed into the train, and they close the doors, and the train's in such a hurry to move that it just takes off. And she goes to the conductor and says, "I can't go. I can't go on this train." And he said, "Lady, it's too late." And as the train starts pulling out, she doesn't know what to do. He says, "You'll have to go to the next station." Well, she says, "I don't have the money for the next station." He said, "Well, you'll just have to walk home." But she's a pretty plucky lady, you know. I saw her rolling a watermelon home one day with her foot because she couldn't carry it, and she got it home. So she went to the corner of the train. Some of you will remember this. There's a certain cord in the corner of the train. Remember that one? She pulled it, and all the doors flew open, and all those people came back, and she said they started hugging and kissing and crying and weeping and wailing all over again, but I got off the train. Well, you have memories like that. It's one of the two big celebrations of the Christian faith. And Christmas rolls tradition and faith and family and music and gift giving to loved ones and charities and nostalgia. It rolls it all into one. It's kind of difficult sometimes to step back, sort it all out. And you know, at Christmas, sometimes we feel a loneliness in our soul that we can't quite identify. You know, comes at the start of winter, Christmas, and there's many long, dreary, cold days and nights ahead. And when we think about our world, the condition of our world, and the state of our nation with all of its many issues, especially now that they seem to strike at the heart of what is sacred and safe, it seems to turn the bells of Christmas into a mockery about peace on earth and goodwill to all. And at such times, we have to remind ourselves at the lights and the bells and the carols of Christmas that they're meant to celebrate not only the good we know, but to bring us back to that glory and wonder that we lost so we can find hope again. And Christmas comes every year just when we need it. And to paraphrase the old Christmas song, we need a little Christmas now. We do. Well, I like Cynthia Ryland's story, and I wanted the kids to enjoy it too, because it brought back all those feelings of longing and nostalgia and hope, and that's pretty good. For children, Christmas is really about awakening them to that natural sense of wonder and joy. That's really great. And if you've given a gift to a small kid and you watch them open it and they're so happy with it, you know, it sort of does something nice in you. And for adults, Christmas calls us back to that time of wonder and of love and hope and belonging and possibility that sometimes we lose in a lifetime. So Christmas invites us to find it all over again. So there in Cynthia Ryland's story is Frankie. Now Frank standing at the train station as an adult with all the memories flooding back from all of those years. And he became almost a child again, waiting for that Christmas train. Same train, same station, same cold 23rd of December. Man in the same blue wool coats tossing out silver packages to children all over again. And he never received that doctor's kit. And I wondered if he recalled all those years as maybe disappointing, waiting as a boy in the snow and the cold as the train came through, never getting the gift he hoped for, but instead getting the ones that he needed, like scarves and socks and hats and mittens and that sort of thing. But now he appreciates their value, and the longing for a doctor's kit created in him a hunger to actually become a medical doctor. And that gratitude led him back to his hometown to give something to those who gave him his start. And day leads on to day, and way leads on to way, and there he is standing in the cold with all those memories, watching the Christmas train, and it was this little girl running and falling and skinning her knee, brings it all into focus. All those gifts of Christmas past, though disappointing, actually led him to find the gifts for his life and his truest self. And like the man in the blue wool coat, Frankie discovered that his gifts could be given back to those who needed them most. And you know, in that story from Luke and Jesus' young life, it is the same with him. We find Jesus as a 12-year-old boy. He's in the temple. It's the year before his bar mitzvah. Luke does not report the story as though Jesus is some kind of boy wonder. He was not really trying to amaze anybody. It's just Jesus, growing up like all of us must do, discovering who he is and what he's about, and the kind of gifts that await discovery. And it's a long process, and it would take another 18 years before Jesus was ready to move out into his ministry and mission. And when you're 12 years old, 18 more years seems like an awful long time. And he wasn't a boy wonder. It's just that Luke is showing us how Jesus could get in touch with the wonder and the glory and the love that God had already placed within him, that he was open to God and all the divine mystery. And he took what was at hand, his upbringing, the teaching of his rabbis, the condition of his community and of his world, his sense of God's presence. And all of that led him to discover God's purposes in his life. And the gifts of his life were to be about his Father's business. Now, it works that way for us too. We're not called to be messiahs, but we are invited once again to discover the wonder and the glory and the love of God for a world that turns its back on God. And the silver package this Christmas is not from the back of a train in the Appalachian Mountains. It's actually from the heart of a God who so loves this world that he became one of us and one with us. It's the gift of discovery that all of us are loved and cared and valued and precious in God's sight. And if our world only understood this, then maybe we might not see the horrors that it seems like we daily see. And if we gave our best gifts to God, those surprising, unexpected, and healing gifts, maybe we would see them how God would use them for the healing of this world, or maybe the healing of the community we live in, or the people we live with. May you discover those gifts again with the wonder and the hope and the joy of a child. And may God use those gifts in you to light up this world with joy. May we all be about the Father's business. Amen.